Hey everyone, Tim Schofield here from CubeKing77.com, and I'm here to compare the top two flagship devices at the moment, the LG G4 and the Samsung Galaxy S6. Now keep in mind there's a bit of a price difference. The G4 runs you about $600, $615 depending on where you buy it off contract, and then the Galaxy S6 runs you about $675, $700 off contract depending on where you buy it. And also with the S6 you can pay an extra $100 and get the Galaxy S6 Edge variant, which has got the dual-sided edges. And those prices are for the 32 gigabytes of internal storage, which comes in both of those models. Anyways, let's go ahead and put both of these phones head to head, take a look, and figure out which one is actually better. Alright, here are both great devices, and the manufacturers actually went with different materials on both of them. Now Samsung has glass and metal surrounding it here, and it gives it a much more premium feel to it. It also gives it a little more fragile feel. And then you have the LG G4, which is essentially plastic all around. You have an option to have a leather back as well. With the plastic back, you have a bit of a texture here, and with the plastic, it seems less fragile than the S6. However, it also feels less premium. You'll notice that the G4 is wider and also a little bit thicker with some added weight to it than the Galaxy S6. However, the G4 has a bit of a larger screen, a 5.5-inch display versus a 5.1-inch display on the Galaxy S6. There's also a bit of a design difference. The G4 has a curve to it, whereas the Galaxy S6 is completely flat with the camera a little bit protruding out of it. Now, the curved design actually allows for it to be much more comfortable in your hand when holding it, or holding it up to your face when you're on a phone call, etc. Another design difference between the two is that the LG G4 has a removable back. So what that means is that you can actually replace the battery if you'd like to, pull it out, put a new one in, and also it has expandable storage right here where you can pop a micro SD card in if 32 gigabytes is not enough for you, whereas the S6 does not have a removable back, completely embedded, and also no expandable storage. You actually have to pay some extra money for some extra internal storage. And then here's the rear of both devices. You'll see you have a 16 megapixel camera on both. You actually have a heart rate sensor on the back of the Galaxy S6, which I don't find myself using very much, but the G4 does not have one of those. You also notice you have buttons on the back of the G4 as opposed to power button on the side of the S6 and volume rockers on the left side. With the G4, it's pretty easy to find the volume rockers as opposed to the power button because there's texture on them as opposed to a smooth power button. It does take a bit of time to get used to using the power button on the back. However, after about 4 days, I find I have no trouble using it at all. You also have a double tap to wake feature, double tap to sleep as well to kind of keep you away from that power button. On the S6, you have a home button down at the bottom and capacitive buttons. The home button actually acts as a fingerprint scanner as well. You'll see I unlock the device very quickly and it works really, really well. The G4 does not have a fingerprint scanner as well, and I believe it should have. I don't know why they didn't add one. Now, the G4 has on-screen buttons as opposed to capacitive buttons down at the bottom. You see of recent running apps. On both of them, you'll see the S6 took a little bit longer than the G4 on that one. Let's try that once more. You'll see the S6 took a little bit quicker on that one. So it's kind of different. Both of them take about very similar times after they have already booted up once. Now, the on-screen buttons versus capacitive buttons debate is honestly just a personal preference for you. If you like the physical home button, the capacitive buttons as well, or the on-screen buttons. The on-screen buttons on the G4 are actually customizable. I'll get to that in just a second. So that's honestly a personal preference. I probably slightly prefer the on-screen buttons over capacitive. Now, you also have a different placement of speaker. You'll see on the G4 it's on the back right, and then on the S6 it's in the bottom right. I prefer the placement to be on the bottom, just because then when your phone's sitting flat on the table, you can still hear it. However, the curved design of the G4 allows you to actually put your phone down and you can still hear it a decent amount, doesn't get too muffled. However, the G4 speaker does get louder than the S6 is. Both are just average sound quality, so I mean, I would prefer the G4's when it comes because it's louder. However, I prefer the S6's placement. Now, lining up the screen, the bottom of the screen on both of them, you'll see that the bottom of the two devices line up just about the same. However, The G4 gets a little bit taller up on the top, but the G4 has a better screen to body ratio, where when you're looking at it, it seems like a lot more screen as opposed to this empty space. Obviously, these capacitive buttons and the volume rockers being on the back attribute to that. All right, so I want to go ahead and take a look at both of these fantastic displays. Honestly, they are both great. However, there are some differences. On the LG G4, you have a 5.5-inch display, screen resolution of 1440 by 2560, but it's an IPS quantum LCD technology. And honestly, I really enjoy it. It's a fantastic display, whether I'm playing games, watching a movie, checking out pictures. And then right here on the Galaxy S6, you have the same resolution, 1440 by 2560, but it's a little bit smaller, a 5.1-inch display, and it uses Super AMOLED technology, which is more focus on blacks. So the blacks are actually completely black because it doesn't actually turn the screen on like an LCD display does. However, both are honestly just fantastic. You can just see both of them. I mean, you can't go wrong with either of them. There are subtle differences within the color reproduction on both of them. I find the S6 focuses a little bit more on greens, actually making them a little bit brighter. But I mean, just overall, you can just see just from this 4K sample videos that they are just really great at whatever they do, and I mean, you just can't go wrong. I don't want to nitpick with them. You got the screen size difference, and you have two phenomenal displays. I prefer the 5.5-inch display, just screen size in general. However, if I had to pick a color reproduction that I prefer, I'd slightly give it to the S6, just because I prefer Super AMOLED over LCD, but both are really just fantastic displays. All right, it's time to compare the camera. Let's cold start both of them. So you'll see it looked like the S6 loaded up just a little bit quicker. I mean, honestly, not very noticeably quicker. So take two very, very quick pictures, and here's both of them. They're gonna look different on both screens just because of the color reproduction, honestly. So you're gonna really have to kind of throw them up on a computer screen and compare both of them. Now, there's various shortcuts to open the camera application on both devices. So first of all, let's talk about the G4. You'll see you can have a camera shortcut down the bottom right. There's also an option where you can double tap the volume down rocker. So I just double tapped it and opens, and it takes a picture without you even doing anything. You can have it not take a picture if you don't want that option on, but that's just one way to open up the camera. A couple of ways to open up the camera application. Obviously, you have the icon as well. Now let's go ahead and check out the S6 as well. On the lock screen, you have an option right here in the bottom right hand corner. Swipe up, it loads up, and then also you have a double tap home button to open that as well. Obviously, you can turn those off if you don't want those there. Now, there are software differences between the two. With the S6, you have more effects and modes and all that stuff. On the G4, it's pretty simple. You have dual mode, panorama, and auto. Going into settings, like I said, you can actually have voice activation to take a picture, HDR mode on both. Now, there's a manual mode on the LG G4, you'll see, and then you also have a mode right here in the bottom right. You'll see mode, a pro mode. So those are both competing modes if you're someone that takes a lot of pictures and wants to kind of choose how the picture gets taken with the light, the ISO, focus, all that stuff, aperture, all that good stuff. So you'll see right here, take a quick picture. I mean, you just have all of these various options, and I find G4s adds a lot more customizability and more options when you're attempting to take a, I guess, professional type picture. So I mean, just overall, LG does a better job with that software. However, I don't think that appeals to the standard consumer. I think most people, when they take a picture, it's just an auto mode, especially when you're on your phone. And then when you got two different pictures side by side, it's going to look a little bit different just because of the two different displays, like I said. Now, both honestly just take fantastic pictures. You really can't go wrong with both. I'm going to give a slight edge to the S6's camera just overall. I kind of prefer it, and I prefer the video camera on the S6. It feels less jumpy and does a little bit better job at recording video. And finally, with the front-facing camera, you have an 8-megapixel camera on the front-facing camera on the G4 and 5 on the S6. However, the S6's includes more things. You'll see you have more of the umbrella behind me, more of the window as well. It's a little bit closer on the G4. Quality is very similar, so I just prefer the S6 because it includes more things. All right, let's take another big thing that people take in consideration when buying a device, the battery life on them. And they are different, actually, and and they include different things. So the G4, like I said, has a removable battery. It's 2900 or 3000 milliamp hour battery depending on the model that you get, and then on the S6 you have a 2550 milliamp hour battery. Both support quick charge, so both can charge very quickly through the micro USB 2.0 slot. However, the Galaxy S6 out of the box supports wireless charging built in. The G4, if you add a certain back, it's going to add wireless charging as well, but you're going to have to buy an extra accessory, etc., whereas the S6 has it built in. Now when it comes to battery life in general, I get better battery life on the G4. Yes, it has a bigger battery. It also has a little bit bigger screen. But I mean, like I said, the battery life's just a little bit better when it comes to screen on time. I get about 3 hours and 45 minutes average on the G4, and on the S6 it's about 3 hours and 20 minutes. And this is over a long period of time of using both devices day to day and just kind of recording all of these numbers. These are very true, 3 hours 45 minutes. This is with heavy usage, getting lots of emails, Periscope stuff, all that good stuff. And I mean, so overall, battery life on the G4 has been about 25 minutes better screen on time. Now when it comes to performance and some internal specs, both have 3 gigabytes of RAM. However, there's a bit of a difference when it comes to the processor. Now the LG G4 has a Snapdragon Qualcomm 808 processor, which is 6 cores. And then you got the Galaxy S6, which uses their own Samsung processor, Exynos 7, which is an octa-core processor. Now when it comes to benchmarks, the S6 is going to kill the G4 any day. But for those of you that actually watch my videos, I honestly do not care about benchmarks at all. So this is Nova 3 running on the G4 at the moment, and I mean, it's very smooth. I rarely run into any lag when gaming whatsoever. However, I want to talk about multitasking and just overall UI real world performance. Again, same goes for the S6. Like I said, essentially no lag whatsoever when gaming. So I mean, you'll see Nova 3 running completely smoothly. Very little jittering whatsoever. But now to give you a quick comparison, maybe with some real world multitasking, you see you have to swipe up with the on-screen buttons to bring the soft buttons back up. So let's go ahead and press the recent apps button at the same time. You'll see both opened at just about the exact same time. Let's go ahead and switch to an app. Both loading up very quickly. Let's try a different one. You'll see both very smooth. I mean, really no issues with multitasking. I find that the overall UI performance is a little bit quicker on the S6 over the G4, and with the better processor, it's a little bit more future-proof in the future for even higher quality games, etc. Now, some of that performance is due to the skin that is over. You see Samsung uses Touchwiz, LG essentially just uses LG UI, and out of the box both have different Android versions. That's going to change in the future. The S6 is going to get a software update, but right now the G4 is going to come with 5.1, and right now the S6 is on 5.0, so there's a bit of a difference with the software. It's not crazy different, but it might help with RAM management with the 5.1 update. See an overall difference in just the launcher looks, etc. You'll see the LG one has widgets built in. You press and hold on the home screen. You'll see you have apps to add widgets right here if you press on widgets here. It's just a little bit different, honestly, between the two. It's going to be a personal preference to see which one you like better. You'll see both have quick panels up here that you can swipe. They're very similar, as you can see. You have your notifications right here. Overall, I would say from real world use, I would give the edge to the S6. Not literally the edge, if you know what I mean, but I mean, it's just from real world performance, it feels a little bit snappier with the Touchwiz, and just LG needs to do a little bit better job with their UI and making it a little more fluid. Now both the UIs offer split screen or multi-window, and I found that the S6 offers a little bit more app compatibility where you can actually add a little more apps. So let's try it. So if I tap on the Play Store, it's going to open in the top one. Let's try over here. We can go ahead and load up YouTube, so we can slide YouTube up there. And you'll see even the Play Store is not even available on this one right here, which is a little unfortunate, obviously. And then let's go ahead and drag the file manager down there. And then when it comes to this one, let's go ahead and just open up Relay right here. So right here, they work very similarly. You'll see you can kind of resize them how you want to. Both offer options to flip-flop. They essentially work exactly the same, but I'm going to give the edge to the S6 because there's a little bit more compatibility with the apps. Samsung also offers the pop-up window where you can drag from the corner and resize an app This works with various apps where you can move it around then, and then also you can tap, and then when you minimize it, it acts as a little bubble. So if I go home, you'll see that bubble's right there. So you can have these apps open in a mini screen right here, and they work. You'll see I can scroll through. Let's select games, and there you go. So I mean, you'll see they work just fine. If you want to minimize it, you just tap on it. Oops, I maximized it, but you get the point. That's just a feature that the G4 does not have. I mentioned earlier the G4 is an option with these soft on-screen buttons right here. We can change the color of it, whether you like the white option or black, it's up to you. You can hide home touch buttons if you open a specific app and you don't want those home touch buttons to stay open. You can choose which app you want to hide them in. And then you have button combinations. You'll see you have notification, Q memo, Q slide, and dual window. I find notification helps the most, so I add that there, and you'll see I can slide down notifications and slide up notifications without even having to pull down from the top of the screen. So a nice addition. You can customize them, so if you want the back button to be over here, you'll see right away it gets flip-flopped. It looks a little weird when I do it that way just because I'm so used to it the other way, but you'll see it's an option. The Galaxy S6 has a leg up when it comes to theming and customizing. They have a complete theme store where you'll see customized app icons, the dialer, the contacts, your SMS application. Whereas the G4 doesn't really have any of this. You'll see there's a store where you can essentially get a ton of different ones, and a bunch just keep getting added. So overall, I think theming is going to be the way of the future, and I think LG kind of missed the ball on that one. So overall, when it comes to just fluidity, more apps in multi-window, theme options, I'm just gonna give the edge of the UI to Touchwiz as opposed to LG's UI. All right, so I just wanna give some final thoughts on these two great devices, and I really mean it. These are two fantastic phones. You really can't go wrong with either of them. Now, there's a couple things I want you guys to take in consideration when considering these two devices. Now, you got the screen size, so that would be a personal preference for you. Design, that's a huge one between these two, whether you want the more premium feel or the more durable feel to it, and you also have back buttons as well. That's another personal preference. Like I said, you get used to them, so if you hate them at first, you might start liking them in the near future. You got on-screen versus capacitive buttons as well. Now, both cameras are honestly just great. Don't worry too much about the camera because you're going to get great pictures out of both of them. And then you also want to think about the software, whether you want Touchwiz, you got some added features with the fingerprint sensor, you got the heart rate sensor as well on the back, just other added software tweaks to it with the theme engine. So I mean, if you want to take a look at the software and which one you prefer. And then battery life, like I said, is a little bit different. You also have a removable battery, expandable storage on the G4. So there are differences between the two. Personally, I don't need an extra battery. I usually find time to charge or bring an extra charger with me. And 32 gigabytes has been enough for me because I kind of locate everything in the cloud when it comes to music, video, photo, all that stuff. So my personal choice, I'm actually gonna go with the S6 right now. I find the camera just to be a little bit faster. I don't need the extra battery or the extra storage like I just said. So for me, the winner is the Galaxy S6. I prefer the UI. I'm not a huge fan of the UI overall, but I prefer it. Check out my full review on both of these great devices. Like I said, if you want more in-depth on them, this is just a comparison of the two. So that's it. Like I said, my personal opinion, I'm gonna have this in my pocket right now, the S6. Let me know what you think. Like I said, I hope you guys really enjoyed this comparison. I'm gonna be doing more comparisons, reviews, tutorials, everything in the future, so stay tuned. Click that subscribe button if you want to be notified of it. I think you can get email notifications as well if you want to change it to that. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+. I mentioned Periscope. I'm going to be doing a live video there. That's really about it. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you have a really great day.